Pac-Man World 2 has been remade, and considering my videos on the original and its sequel, of course I wanted to talk about it. Pac-Man World 2 is a childhood classic, one that I asserted taught me to be good at video games. Despite its flaws, I also hold the sequel, Pac-Man World 3, in high regard. The reveal trailer had me excited, and the realization that Martin T. Sherman was coming back to voice Pac-Man in newly added cutscenes got me really excited about the future of Pac-Man World as a series. As a game I've replayed numerous times and hold in high regard, I'm deeply familiar with Pac-Man World 2. So, how does this Re-Pac stack up? I'll start by giving my overall impressions. Having played the game to completion, I can tell you that it's well worth the price of entry. Pac-Man World 2 Re-Pac is full of charm and fun, making it a really solid 3D platformer. Gameplay is pretty tight, and the variety of options at your disposal lead to some pretty interesting challenges. The missions and time trials for levels add some decent replay value to the experience, so for $30, you're getting plenty of game to enjoy. Honestly, the fact that this remake is a budget price when most other contemporary remakes are full price is astounding. If you're even mildly interested in playing it from the trailers or gameplay footage, you really should just get it. That being said, there are some differences I want to highlight from the original. Some are good and some are not so good, and since I am so familiar with the original game, these differences were some of the most prominent things I noticed. Let's start with a positive change, the cutscenes. The original game had a combined total of 3 cutscenes, 2 at the very beginning and 1 at the very end. Any other time Pac-Man might interact with another character, it was communicated through text and idle animating character models. Adding cutscenes to certain levels and boss encounters really tightens up the presentation of the game, so I appreciate it. I also appreciate Martin Sherman reprising his role from Pac-Man World 3. Pac-Man is certainly a character who doesn't need a voice, but in the instances where he has one, Martin is my definitive voice. The tone of the game is decidedly in the child-friendly cartoon category. It took a little bit to grow on me since I was used to Martin's more sarcastic direction in World 3, but eventually I grew to appreciate the story for what it was. Let's move on to how the gameplay has changed. The Pac-throw from World 1 is now in the game where it previously wasn't. Combine this with the flip kick being a dedicated button that can be used in the air or on the ground, and suddenly the game has a lot more offensive options for dealing with enemies. This allows gameplay to be more varied and satisfying since there are more options for attacking. In fact, some enemies require one of the 3 options, flip kick, Pac-throw, or butt bounce, in order to be defeated. There are now also enemies who have health bars, requiring more than one hit to defeat. This is a significant departure from the original game, as every enemy used to be defeatable in 1 hit. Some would just require a specific technique. Most enemies are completely optional to defeat, so this doesn't hamper flow too much, but in the instances where you're required to take down a multi-hit enemy for a time trial, you will no doubt notice the period an enemy is invulnerable to successive attacks is too long and doesn't even match up to their flashing invincibility animation. Given how this game has widened combat options, I can't help but wonder how this will affect the World 3 Re-Pac. In my previous video on the topic, I stated that I wanted the developers to lean into the combat to iron it out in the remake, but I don't fully see how that's possible with the current changes. Going from the World 1 to World 2 Re-Pac, it's clear the team is going for an additive approach, keeping mechanics from the previous game and finding ways to fit them in with the next game's mechanics. I suppose they could switch things around to the rev roll being on a trigger to make room for the punch button, but adding the 3-hit combo from World 3 to Re-Pac's ability set doesn't inherently fix the combat. The Pac dot throw and grounded flip kick are single-hit attacks, so they sort of don't mesh well with the original intent of Pac-Man World 3's combat. Maybe this means a World 3 Re-Pac will de-emphasize combat, although even that possibility is hard to square with the newly added enemy health bars. I suppose I can hope that this additive approach means adding some contextual actions to existing combat options. Perhaps the flip kick, being a slow attack, is good for dispatching weaker enemies, but its main purpose could be a well-timed parry to counter attacking enemies. The other combat change I want to note has to do with a specific enemy, the Rev Roll Ram. These enemies charge up a rev roll attack, the same kind that Pac-Man uses, in order to quickly dash forward and hit Pac-Man. This makes them fairly unique as the only enemy that uses Pac-Man's own abilities against him. In the original game, to defeat a rev roll ram, you needed to charge your own rev roll and collide your attack with theirs in order to stun them long enough to hit them with a butt bounce. This was, in professional game design terms, really fucking sick. It calls upon some common knowledge that players might have, that rams will often headbutt each other, and turns it into a cool gameplay moment that also helps showcase Pac-Man's strength. In World 2 Re-Pac, you can't defeat rev roll rams this way. Instead, you have to approach them as they charge their attack and hit them with a flip kick or rev roll before they have a chance to move. This then flips them over, and then you can hit them with a butt bounce. While this does make combat a little snappier, it removes a really cool and inspired aesthetic choice, and this is not the only time that has happened in this remake. Bosses have also been significantly changed. Originally, Clyde had a frog robot and the other 3 ghosts had nearly identical ghost mechs. Clearly this was done for time constraint reasons, so thankfully this was changed. All the individual ghosts now have unique animal mechs, making the theming more consistent and the boss fights more varied. Although I am a little upset that the ghost mech isn't present at all. It wasn't fun to fight 3 times, but it was fun to fight once. Especially now with the bosses having multiple phases, I would have appreciated the ghost mech fights being conglomerated into some kind of extra boss. Let's move on to the levels. One of the strongest parts of Pac-Man World 2 was the level design. The original developers were really cooking when they made this game, so seeing changes to that design really surprised me. Some changes were minor, adding some hidden areas to accommodate for the new super butt bounce ability or slightly changing up how mechanics were presented. Other changes were so drastic that the only thing the Re-Pac level shares with the original is its name. For instance, Scuba Duba is no longer an auto-scroller, so its design was made completely different. There are significant level design changes in many places. The new level designs also took away my wife, the crumbling pillars after the first volcano level. Those pillars made me who I am, but now they're gone. They took away my wife, viewers. Bandai Namco took my fucking wife. Volcanic Panic also no longer lets you roll up the side of the walls, removing a pretty interesting mechanic. However, the most egregious change, in my opinion, is what they did to Haunted Boardwalk. The original level was this interesting skate through a dilapidated boardwalk. There were branching high and low paths that sometimes combined with falling platforms to force you to make split-second decisions that might cost you a collectible. But now it's a Sonic level. Really, I mean that. The grind rails, speed, wall riding, and trick ramps were all clearly made as a test case for the upcoming Sonic Collaboration DLC that doesn't even unlock until December. Is it cool that they've got these mechanics working? Yes, absolutely, but at what cost? This is the kind of thing that would have worked well as a bonus level to tease out the upcoming collaboration pack, but instead, they massacred my boy. This new haunted boardwalk has aura, sure, but it's utterly lacking in sauce. And on the subject of aesthetic, there's definitely an aesthetic problem with the new world map. In the original game, the world map showed a long, sprawling path for your adventure that eventually led back to the village. Now, the village is the central hub, and almost every zone connects to it. The only exception is Ghost Island, which is directly connected to the water zone. This is particularly silly because the original levels had transitional areas that showed you going from one zone to another. The gradual progression of the environments was an incredibly cool detail, but since those zones are no longer connected, the transitional details don't mean anything anymore. Really, it seems like this aesthetic change was done purely to justify booting you back to the village after beating every boss, so that you'd be more tempted to use the gashapon machines. And well, the gashapon machines are an annoying feature. In concept, having statues to place around the village is a harmless bonus feature, but I would have just preferred directly getting statues for completing missions rather than collecting tokens to redeem for figures that may only sometimes be new. Other games with these kinds of aesthetic unlockables, if they aren't there to feed you into a microtransaction loop, will usually change the drop table to remove the ones you've already gotten, but not this game. Instead, every figure needs to be gotten at full odds, no matter if it's the last one in the set or not. You can go for 10 minutes at a time chasing the one common figure needed to complete the set, just constantly wading through duplicates. Duplicates aren't automatically converted into tokens to give you free retries, so you have to pay attention to a repetitive gumball machine the entire time. It feels like an excuse to waste my time. Overall, I like the game a whole lot. It's got a lot of fun 3D platformer action. Seriously, I played it so much that I accidentally glitched the remix spider robot boss and spawned an unkillable spider. I named him Leonard. Everyone comment, "Hi Leonard," if you've watched this far into the video. However, there are areas in which this remake fundamentally misunderstands aesthetic and design choices from the original game. As much as I love this remake, I wish there had been more effort to preserve the choices made in the original, whether that be including untouched levels as bonus levels or making a port of the original available for purchase alongside this remake. The Final Fantasy VII remake, as far as I understand it, is a huge departure from the original game, but that's perfectly fine because the original Final Fantasy VII is also available for purchase on modern platforms right now. When a remake is as unfaithful as Pac-Man World 2 Re-Pac, it's important to make sure both the original and the remake are available so players can see and appreciate the changes made. Still, this is a great game, and if this and the post-launch survey are any indication, the Pac-Man World series has a bright future ahead. Until the next game, though, that's all I have to say about Pac-Man World 2 Re-Pac. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll watch the next video. And to any Bandai Namco executives who might be listening, I would be very happy to voice the archaeologist in Pac-Man World 3 Re-Pac. Don't act like you're not thinking about making it. I filled out your survey.